Hello, and welcome back to another episode of 10 Minutes of Astrology. My name is Shay. If you'd like more information, please see the housekeeping in the comments. We're going to get started talking about Mars in Pisces in 2035. Now, this enters into Pisces approximately May 31st, 2035. For those of you who don't know, Mars is the planet of action, war, and conflict. I use a lot of simple terminology, so this is easy to follow along, and I can keep it in about the 10-minute mark. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. They are the meek. I explain to people that Jesus, during his time period when astrology showed differently, because that was 2,000 years ago, so it showed differently. Jesus was a Pisces. So it is meek, it is humble, it's very ethereal and spiritual, and whimsy's not the right word, but like they're out of body, basically. They're not really here in this reality. They're like floating. They do represent the fish swimming in two different directions. So this is a duality sign. The negative side of a Pisces is addictions and disconnection. So let's go ahead and get started now. I like to only talk about planets that I've already made videos on. So if I skip other planets like Mercury, Venus, the Sun, and the Moon, that's why. Now, we see that Mars enters, and yes, it does make an alignment to Mercury immediately, but we're going to skip that. And we're going to go straight into talking about the inconjunct to Saturn in Leo at 1 degree. Now, if you have anything in Libra at 1 degree, this is going to create a yod, what we call God's finger in astrology. That would be pointing at Mars. I'm not going to go too into detail about that. If you'd like to book a reading with me, it's $30 for approximately 45 minutes. You get a lot of information. You can also book a free reading with me if you're interested. And that is 10 minutes of whatever type of reading you are interested in. I do stichomancy, graphology, and other things if you are interested. But this inconjunct to Saturn. Now, inconjuncts are irritating alignments. They're usually short-lived. With Saturn, Saturn represents father time and wisdom. It is ruled by the sign of Capricorn. Leo, however, is like it's luxurious and egotistical is not the word that I'm looking for, but they're elaborate, basically elegant. The Leo rules the sun. Everything revolves around the sun. Leos feel like everything should revolve around it. So with the wisdom and kind of patience and consistency in a sign like Leo, well, our time management is about being generous. It's about giving to all of those around us. And so this inconjunct here is you want to be this like flamboyant giver. The wisdom here is if I can help everybody around me, then that's going to help me. But Mars in Pisces says, no, I need to focus on like this spiritual healing, and I need to do things at a pace that makes sense. It's very different vibes. Now, Mars is not comfortable in Pisces. Saturn is not comfortable in Leo. So this alignment is irritating because you are coming across, your actions, Mars, are coming across as lofty, Pisces. And it is wise, Saturn, to be kind of more I'm not going to say involved in your community, but more involved in like being creative. And Leo is, again, very generous. So kind of giving to those around you. And it's wise to, how do I want to say this? Because Leo is so over the top. Like, if you can think kings and queens and royalty, like it's wise to self-groom, self-care, and provide to all of your constituents, and like it's big talk, right? It's saying that you are going to do more than maybe you actually can. And these two are not in alignment because Mars is acting in a way that's really slow paced. Pisces is not fast moving. If anything, it. I wish that I had better terminology right now. It's first thing in the morning when I'm doing this, so my brain may not be functioning as well as it should. But Mars in Pisces here is, I'm not going to say lazy. They do like to sleep. Mars in Pisces likes to take things kind of slow and peaceful, and it doesn't want to move super fast. Like it wants to, they want to be in the moment and they believe that they're in the moment, but they're so far out of the moment and out of this time and space that your actions kind of don't come into fruition of anything. Now, Pisces does represent all the signs of the zodiac, so of course they have the ability to do and pick up the pace and da-da-da, but Mars in Pisces doesn't want to do that. They want to feel their way through things. And Saturn in Leo is like, I just want to do for everybody, and I want to give everybody everything, and I want to spoil people rotten, and I want to spoil myself rotten, and we only live once, and so I just want to spend. Saturn in Leo is definitely spendthrift territory where you're not really in control of your money or your finances or yourself because you are just giving it all away. And Mars and Pisces, here it's like you're giving all of this away and you're not really emotionally taking in how much this might actually financially affect you later on and long term, because you're doing it now in the moment and you're not considering all of the long-term effects of doing these things in this moment. We're going to go ahead and move on because I've spent way too much time talking about this, and I typically only have 10 minutes, and I'm already at 8. So, yeah, we're going to move on. And this looks like this goes into June as well, to the 2-degree mark. So, and the beginning degrees, I always say, are the learning degrees. You're just getting into it. So you're not going to be as good at it. That alignment is definitely looks like it's going to come back and bite you later if you don't really think it through. So this, I am doing this differently than how I normally do it. So maybe it's easier for you to follow along. We then have Mars square Chiron in Gemini. Now, Gemini and Pisces are one of the few squares of the zodiac that I feel like are the least difficult, just because they're both dual signs, and it's kind of however you end up taking it and aligning with it, because Gemini can shapeshift and Pisces can shapeshift. So if they shapeshift in a way that is beneficial, then there's not an issue. The issue becomes when Gemini is trying to be too mental and too logical and too specific, and Pisces just exits this universe entirely mentally and emotionally, and they're not present whatsoever. That's when the square can really be harmful. But if they shapeshift together and work together, then this square is probably the easiest square of the zodiac to handle. Now, Chiron in Gemini is trying to help heal in others the duality and kind of the mental strain. And this is like mental health care territory. And at 7 degrees, this square here is saying, Mars, I know that you're acting in a way that is very ethereal, and you can't be pinned down to any one idea or any one thing, and we get that. But part of healing is to make the decision and stick with the decision to put this as a priority. However, Gemini can say that and mean it in that moment, but 2 seconds later be like, you know what? The point is actually to help others, not you. If you take yourself out of this situation and you only focus on, the healing for everybody else, then you won't have to think about your problems and maybe they'll just go away. And of course, that's not the correct answer. But because these things shapeshift into, oh, well, this makes sense too. They can all make sense, but is it correct? So that square is kind of check your mental health here. And we do have some things at 9 degrees, 8, 9, 10 degrees that are doing kind of different things with each other, but I'm not going to get super into detail with those. I do have other videos. If you check my housekeeping in the comments, I do have a astrology predictions playlist. Now, this square does lead for a couple of days, just so you know. So this is going to be a couple of days of focusing on mental health stuff. We do have a conjunction to the South Node. I don't typically talk about the nodes, but the South Node is the kind of issues that you fall back on, the problems that you fall back on. And in this scenario, the issues that you fall back on are going to be those like addictions and bad habits and things that, you can't grasp to get a handle on. We have here a trine to Uranus and Cancer. So this is healing in relationships, especially with the family, specifically with mother and mother figures, and the spirit. So this is like goddess healing spirits that I do like this. Now, Uranus is the planet of kind of chaos. And with Cancer, this has been chaos with the family, but Mars and Pisces is saying, we can feel differently about this. We can address this in a way that is emotionally, we can handle this emotionally rather than chaotically. Even though Uranus is a planet of chaos and I'm not going to say destruction, but it's technology, it's lightning, and it's random. And Uranus is considered a malefic planet, or a planet that, is more bad and negative and difficult. So even though Uranus is what it is, at least here, this trine is saying we can move in a better direction if we consider our spirit here and our emotions here and how we feel about this and how we feel about this relationship. And how can we do this better emotionally together? So I do like that. But on the South Node, again, falling back on those addictions and the bad habits of, and this is active because we have Mars here, and at 9, they're on top of each other. So, and you're going to be opposite the North Node in Virgo, which is the North Node represents your highest self, or what you're striving to be, which is perfection. So we're opposite kind of our highest form of self that is trying to seek perfection here, which nobody is perfect. We all know that. So Virgos, don't beat yourself up over the fact that, it may not be perfect, but at least you're trying to get somewhere. We then have a sextile to Jupiter in Taurus. I don't particularly care for Jupiter in Taurus. Jupiter doesn't particularly care for Taurus. But here it is a positive thing because Jupiter, the bigger things in your life, especially with education and philosophy, are comfortable and kind of strapped in. Now, this is big communication that when you see or meet somebody with a Jupiter in Taurus, they're going to take over the conversation. Like, you're not going to get a word in nowhere. And this sextile here is basically Mars stepping back and allowing Jupiter and Taurus to have the conversation and hold the space and say, you know what, you want to hold this space, you take the space, because Pisces is going to step back and allow everybody else to do everything that they need. And then it's only until everything is completely quiet that they're going to speak softly, and you have to really lean in to listen. So I do like this alignment because you're holding space, and you're allowing that space for others to really vent and air out these bigger things that, you know, they want to discuss. And this also seems to happen for a couple of days. So we're going to move on to the next alignment now. Mars does go retrograde in Pisces. So here soon, it's going to be entering its shadow period, which is basically like its pre-retrograde shadow, which means that it is going to enter into the time that you will then have to go back through, so that way you can go through it again, which is, you know, great. We just back and forth, back and forth. And so this is apparently going to be double of 10 minutes of astrology today. Hopefully you don't mind. This is a kind of real-time thing that we're doing here. So give me a minute while I try to find what the next alignment is going to be, which looks like a semi-sextile to Pluto potentially in Aquarius. Now, semi-sextiles are learning teaching. So Pluto here would be learning from Mars because it is the sign behind Pisces. Now, Mars in Pisces is going to teach Pluto in Aquarius that you don't always have to act. It doesn't have to be change after change after change, because Pluto is about transformation and Aquarius loves change for the sake of change. And Mars here is saying you don't have to do anything. You can let it be for a little while and let it cool off and let whatever is going to happen, and let the cards fall, let the deck fall where it may, and give it time to play out. You don't always have to do everything and anything and random, and like, you can let it be and just see where we are. Like, Mars in Pisces is basically inaction is still an action. And if you can just be patient and allow it, then you'll see what comes of it. But if you're constantly changing things and you're constantly switching stuff up, at some point you're not even involved in the switch up anymore, just because you're changing it. You know, it's at some point you have to take a step back to see where you are. So I really like that. I really, really like that. That is very powerful. So this goes into the first part of July. We're in the second week of July now, and we are in the shadow period. So the shadow period of something like this is it's going to seem like the darker side of your action. So potentially this inaction that you have towards all of this may be seen as negative. Like, why aren't you doing anything? Why can't you do anything? And Mars and Pisces can't always, like, emotionally be present. You know, they kind of tap out mentally and emotionally, and sometimes even physically. They just can't. And so, and Mars and Pisces can also get overwhelmed emotionally. So they may be like, oh, you can't handle this situation, you're just tapping out of it. It may be seen as a bad thing. We then have a semi-sextile to Neptune in Aries. I also really like this. Now, Neptune in this situation is going to be teaching Mars. Now, this is a mutual reception because Neptune's home placement is Neptune is ruled by Pisces. Mars is ruled by Aries. So this is a mutual reception. I love this. This is amazing. This is spiritually healing. Now, Neptune, for those of you who don't know, I always say it is as if you are in the presence of God. And in Aries, it's the infant, it's the newborn, it's the child, it doesn't know. And even though you feel like spirit may not know, it's okay not to know everything. And Neptune here is teaching Mars, and in a way, Mars is teaching Neptune that divine timing and, just because you don't know and just because you can't act and just because it may seem difficult and very conflicted, do what you feel spiritually compelled to do. Whatever God is calling you to do, whatever it is that you are being drawn to, that's your answer. If deep down in your spirit and your soul, then you know, and don't stress about it. Neptune in Aries has been spiritually awakening, and like it's been a brand new spiritual journey that we've been on, and it's teaching Mars that you have to follow your spirit. That is what's guiding you ultimately. And when you go against that, you're gonna get immediately slapped in the face. Like, it doesn't work out. And this is very healing, because it's your spirit is confirming to you that your actions and what you're doing are the right things. Even if it's inaction, that's the correct response. And, even if your action is really like, let's say you have a lot of Aries placements, even if your actions are very spontaneous and erratic and direct, the spirit is saying, whatever action, if you feel compelled to immediately jump into action, that's the right answer. If you're compelled to run away and go ask for help, that's the right action. There's no wrong answers here. And I love that. So here in just a minute, you're going to see that Mars does go retrograde, and it looks like, it's going to be right around this Neptune time period. But remember, these actions are also kind of in the dark too, because we're in the shadow period. So even though it may not feel like it's correct, and my mother growing up used to say, make a decision either way, you're wrong. So it could be that, yes, it is the spiritual compel bit, but it could also be you are going against your spirit and you don't even realize it because you're in the dark. So, it simultaneously is, there's no wrong answers, and make a decision either way, you're wrong. So it's like, no matter what you do, you're both right and wrong. And so long as you're following your spirit, even if it's in the dark, you have to believe that spirit is guiding you even in the dark. And I like these alignments, but again, the dark side of it is that, you don't really see the long term of it. And that comes back to the alignment that we had with Saturn, is that this may be the time period that being that giving and that open and that generous could be biting you in the back. So we station at approximately 28 degrees, and then we begin our retrograde cycle with Mars here in August of 2035. And Neptune is also retrograde. Pluto is retrograde. So we have several retrogrades here that are happening that, you have to go back and learn whatever lesson it was again, which, is fine. These particular lessons, I don't mind as much. Some of the lessons of some of these alignments are much more difficult than others, but it looks like this time period, even though I don't like Mars and Pisces necessarily, because it can be, I'm not going to say lazy. I don't like calling alignments lazy, and I certainly don't like calling Mars lazy, because I don't want to offend the gods. But, Mars and Pisces is definitely not as active as it could be. However, I say that knowing that Pisces is a culmination of all the signs in the zodiac. So they have it within them to act however is needed in the moment. Of course, hold on. And you're seeing real time how I do this, so it's not going to be as put together as some of my other videos. So, gosh, I'm going on 30 minutes now. This is taking much longer than I meant for it to. Whoopsie daisy. So again, we have the semi-sextile to Neptune. The same lesson, except this time it feels backwards. It feels like we're, this is like, I didn't mean for it to be this direction, but if it's going to be this direction, this is the direction we're going in. And okay, let's do it. So, yeah, I still like it though. It just is going to feel like we're repeating it, but we're repeating it in a way that feels backwards because it is. We have the full moon right at that 22 degrees on top of this Mars. So that is going to be interesting because it's bringing to light kind of this daily, you're trying so hard every day to be this particular person. And the moon inside is like, but who am I really? How do I really feel about this? So I think the next alignment is that square, the sextile again to Jupiter. So allowing other people to hold space and have that communication, have that conversation, say what they need to say, and kind of take over the room. So when you speak during this time, wait for everything else to be silent. So that way you're really heard and you're really listened to, because if you're trying to talk over the noise, nobody is going to hear you. So this is a great time to take a step back, allow everybody else to get everything else off their chest that they need to talk about. And then when it's quiet and when you can return to the conversation, that's when you go, okay, I'm going to speak softly. What is it? Speak softly and carry a big stick. So the next alignment after this looks like it's going to be the semi-sextile again to Pluto, which again, I really like, this, the way that we're trying to transform society. Mars is saying, hey, take this step back. So we have a couple of alignments here at 17 degrees. We have the in conjunct to Saturn, Saturn's opposite Pluto, exactly. Now, the opposition here, I'm pretty sure if I didn't talk about it in my Saturn video, I definitely didn't talk about it in my Pluto video. I'll bring it up loosely here. Oppositions are either best friends or worst enemies. It's either going to work or it isn't. And, this is, okay, it's wise to be spendthrift, opposing what's better for the collective, which is not basically burning your money versus, but everybody needs something, but, now I'm not getting taken care of. So how am I benefiting from this greater collective that's always changing? And again, Mars in Pisces is saying, just don't do it. Just wait. Just hold on a minute. and the in conjunct to Saturn is, but it's wise to be creative and explore and be spontaneous and have fun. And Mars in Pisces is like, shh, just be quiet. Don't make that decision. Don't, and Saturn in Leo is like, I'm going to do whatever I want because it's my money and it's my time and it's my life, and I'm going to have fun. So Saturn is incorrect here. And I'm going to lean on Pluto and Aquarius because it's just been there for so long. It's had that heaviness there for so long that, the greater collective is the kind of answer here. I really hope that my phone has enough memory for me to be doing this. We shall see. And this looks like it's going to be lasting for a good little portion of October here. And then we have, again, the moon coming into play in all this, and how you look at yourself and how you view yourself and all this. So this is, again, we're in a very different time period, but now Mars is direct again. Again, we are hammering at this 17 degrees. So just remember, if you have anything at 17 or even 18 degrees here, because we do have Jupiter at play in all of this as well at that 18 degrees, and you see there's like a big, what we call a fixed grand square. We have Venus here. So this is a lot of conflict that is hammering in one area of life that, I personally would just hold off making big decisions and having those big conversations and not really include a whole lot of my own input, because this amount of conflict that sure can have some resolutions, but because this is steady with each other and staying on those degrees really heavy, to me, I'm not really conflict oriented. Mars is conflict oriented though. So like, I don't want you to add fuel to this fire here, because we have enough people that are a big mouth and think that they're right and want to do what they want to do. And, it's on the opposite end, it's you've got to do for everybody else because that's the right thing to do. It's like the right thing to do is for yourself, but at the same time, the right thing to do is to not be selfish and to think about others before yourself. And it's like, at what point, when is it right? Like, is it right to take care of me first? Or does that come across as selfish and I need to take care of everybody else because that's my responsibility? I didn't ask for this responsibility. And so for a while, this is a bit heavier than I'm comfortable with. So we again have another exact semi-sextile to Neptune here. Yeah, during this whole time period, I would just be quiet. I would just let the chips fall, wherever going to fall, whatever's going to happen. And then we have a sextile between Uranus and Jupiter here as well, which I do like. This is, bigger kind of chaos that is about the family, but at least these family things are starting to calm down and become more symbiotic. So, there's positive and negative everywhere here. And again, I don't really like Mars in Pisces like that, because the indecision is still a decision. But it looks like the indecision here is actually going to be beneficial if you take a step back and really take a step back and be like, no, you know what? I'm just going to let this play out. Might actually work here, because if you get involved, I'm not going to say somebody's liable to go to jail, but, it's going to be, you're going to bite off more than you can chew, especially because your mood and your emotion is not going to be invested. So I believe the last alignment that we're going to talk about is just Pisces exiting and Mars exiting Pisces and going into Aries, where it is actually comfortable. And this is approximately December 2nd, 2035. If you appreciate stuff like this, press all the buttons. Peace out, fam. Much love.